All right. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. So this is Japan Month in Review for August 2018. We're back in Asagaya at this fucking crazy, not crazy, but it's I love the atmosphere here.
Actually, last night it got flooded.
Yeah, we had a huge flood. It was the craziest.
This is underground. We're in the basement, one floor, and it was about 1 centimeter deep, which is about what a quarter inch or something in America, I would suppose.
Yeah,
it was that deep with water down here last night. Yes.
It was nuts, and I was outside. I went to the gym to try to reduce my make up for the amount of beer I put into me on the weekends. And after the gym, I went there and the weather was fine, but I came out and it was the most intense rain I'd ever seen in my whole life.
I was watching.
There were curtains. I was there. There were curtains of rain coming down, and I was on one highway going home, and the rain was blowing the wind at like a 60, 70 degree angle. But then on the side streets, the rain was blowing out the side streets at 90-degree angles. I had about 5 meters or 20 feet of vision before it just went completely dark. And I'm up to like half my feet are getting into the rain. There's just unavoidable. And there's also lightning shooting around everywhere. So I was so scared of dying. Actually, I was scared of dying yesterday.
I've never okay, as I've told you before and everyone out there, I'm a former U.S. Marine and so forth. I was never actually in combat, and I was in California in our base. Sometimes we had artillery shooting in the next valley, but this was nothing like that. This was intense and continuous, and I unplugged the computer.
Yeah.
I unplugged the computer because
my girlfriend told me to have a shower after coming home, but I was lightning was going off at like 70, 80 times a minute at least. It was
just today, just before meeting you, me and my wife, we went down to the local Seiyu. This is Seiyu's a department store in Japan, and we bought. It says in Japanese, it'll stop electronic surge by lightning. Because 2 weeks ago, actually, we lost power by lightning attack, and I have a computer. Well, I don't, TV. We have a TV, but I don't care much for the TV. But
fuck TV. I hate TV.
The computer has got a lot of stuff on it that I use, and I write books. So my wedding pictures, I gotta say to my wife, hold on, yeah, we would lose the wedding pictures, and that's why it's like you get sorry about that.
Women, their emotions.
Yeah. But me, yeah.
As a man, I wouldn't care if my wedding pictures went away. That's how tough I am.
Well, I would lose my battleship pictures, but that would upset me.
No!
Oh! But I have this book, and I did all this work, and I did like 8 months of work to get all this stuff done. And you think that a computer surge could take lightning surge would take it out? Wow.
It could. And you've written a few books, eh?
5 so far.
5 so far. Well, we'll get into that. So anyways, we had huge flooding yesterday. I was in it, and it was the most intense weather I'd ever experienced in my entire life.
I think this is what's going to be the new normal.
I was like a dog running away from fireworks.
Yes. We're going to have extremes of temperature and weather, and we have to get used to it. And
weather's always extreme.
There's a huge underground space in Asagaya. I don't know locally exactly where, but we've lived here 8 years. Our first few years here, 4 or 5 years, it was under construction area south of the station had a huge thing. This is the entrance, the underground chambers, which are being delved out to take care of this water.
With our tax money.
Yes. And it didn't work this weekend. Now, why? Well, maybe it's just not enough. Or maybe there's just not enough to... And my wife said, so why don't they do more?
There was too much. It's too much to deal with, that much of a deluge.
Exactly. And also, you see, one thing we're talking about under major urban areas, taking major underground areas and making huge caverns to hold water in... what happens in an earthquake? Could we have, like, Asagaya Station suddenly sink 150 meters into a huge hole?
Create a new subway station.
We could.
An underwater one.
That's
future.
I wouldn't want to be there when it happens.
The underwater subway. This
How long can you hold your breath?
I want to catch the express train.
Could get me out of here fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, so anyways, it was nuts. I wouldn't normally talk about the weather, but it was the most extreme weather
Right.
I'd been
It
in.
was
So
pretty bad.
let's begin with the month in review.
All right.
New products. Now,
Uh-huh.
sometimes I like to bring in these wacky products because
Japan has weird things.
I-
No, people overseas think they're weird, but over here they're like nifty.
or they're just temporary. Or I tried ramen ice cream.
Excuse me.
There's a half
I'm okay. You got me here.
Ramen.
Ice cream.
this, yeah.
The noodles like dried.
Yeah, it's like dried salty noodles on the top, and then underneath is a butter caramel ice cream.
Why do they need the noodles on the thing?
I don't know, but it was disgusting. It was
Okay.
it was not a good product. I thought it might be, the salty crunchiness of the noodles mixed with the butter caramel, caramel and salty caramel makes sense. Didn't work. But this is the product for today. It's a super cold juice box. I don't think anyone's going to be able to see that, but I'll hold it up anyways as evidence.
A super cold juice box.
For juice lovers who want to keep their drinks in the best and coolest condition, Thanko has the new super cold box, equipped with a fan that keeps out the heat and a special refrigerating device. The container can cool a 21 degrees Celsius drink to 8 degrees Celsius in an hour. It can also hold small chocolates and a 500 milliliter bottled beverages as well. Comes in two sizes for 500 millimeters and 1,000 milliliters.
May I just
Well, hold on. What's the price? How much do you think this super cold juice box cost?
5,000 yen.
Dude, 4,980 yen.
Ha! I got you right.
Yeah.
I was on it.
Yeah.
Now, can I tell you what I do? When me and my wife go to onsen, by the way, is hot springs resorts.
I was there a few weeks ago. I went up to a very
have-
luxurious onsen.
I have a silver-lined just case from Sapporo beer I got because I buy a lot of Sapporo beer. I have Sapporo beer, and I got a case for buying all these cans of beer, and it's lined with temperature retardant. And every time I go out and buy something, they put a Hohenzeit's is a temperature retardant little thingy. I keep it and put it in the freezer. And some
you mean
of them
like
are
those
big.
little bags?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them are kind of big. And I just freeze those things. And when I go out, I just put them in this huge Sapporo thing. And I put the beer in there. And we're good for like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, they work well.
And it gets me to the onsen. And when I get to the onsen, I put them in the fridge. Because now, in the old days in Japan, you couldn't bring beer to onsen. You couldn't bring beer to a hotel. They charge you for that. But now they just ignoring the refrigerator is good for your use. And that's when I come home. And that thing was free. It wasn't any 4,980
But
yen.
dude, yours doesn't have a fan, and it doesn't have,
doesn't have a fan.
box, and it doesn't keep
But
drinks.
it does have a large star, golden star of Sapporo. It says, love beer.
So, anyways, that's this week's
says
the super
love
cold
beer.
juice box. If you're interested, it's www.thanko.jp/shop detail /00000003099.
Well, the fan needs a battery? Probably.
Oh.
Well, all right. If this is your
I'm
thing.
not sure if it has a USB or if it has a lithium. Lithium is good.
Well, all right. Go for it. Me, I'm the primitive type.
You are the primitive type. Jesus Christ.
You can't go anywhere with me, can you?
No, I can't. Okay, let's get into it. You said you wanted to do some wargaming. I've already decided the title of this podcast is going to be
Wargame.
Spitball Wargaming or
Well,
Wargaming
all right. This
Spitballs.
is actually what he's referring to is in my latest book, which is being deeply revised but published. I have a conference again next week. But I think this will pass. It's a simulation.
Yeah.
And it's a simulation of what I think is the most possible next actual future war with for Japan.
And this is with
A united Korea.
a united Korea.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to introduce it with just a quote from the news, just to let everybody know that this is from, what's the date today? August 28th?
Yes, it's August 20th.
August 28th, Japan Today, but they're quoting from some recent statements by the Japanese government. Tokyo insisted today, there is no change in our basic recognition concerning the threat of North Korea's nuclear weapons and missiles. The government believes it. Pyongyang continues to pose an unprecedentedly serious and imminent threat to Japan's security and significantly damage the peace and security of the region and the international community. Japanese Defense Minister Itsunori Onodera acknowledged in the document that North Korea had begun dialogue with former foes. Quote, but we cannot overlook the fact that even to this day it possesses and fully deploys several hundred missiles that put nearly all of Japan within range, stressed the minister. In response, Japan is steadily upgrading its capacity to shield the nation from the North's arsenal.
That was a call for it. That was just a sort of...
I don't know. Some sort of
please.
Including I'm about to end. Including a plan to spend some $4.2 billion over the next 3 years. I think that's all I got.
Where do I start?
So that's just to indicate that it's Japan month in review for August. Let's review it by way of okay, Max, over to you.
First of all, all this missile business, it's just money. It's just money. People want to sell anti-missile systems which really don't work well. If you're going to shoot a missile, basically, it comes down to this. You can shoot it down its first 5 minutes of flight or its last 5 minutes before hitting a target. And it's an entirely iffy thing. To shoot it down actually 5 minutes after launch, you have to have something within range that you can actually, that's a missile, we understand it, and shoot at it, and boom.
Missiles look big on the ground, but they're small in the air. They're not exactly easy
and,
to hit.
Some years ago, an American Aegis, I think it was Aegis destroyer, shot down an Iranian airliner over the Persian Gulf by mistake. They thought it was an actual attack on them. You see, you're okay. And you know me, I rag on America all the time. But America, in this sense, they were worried about attack on their ship, and they mistook it. And you don't have time to think. It's shoot. And they shot down an airliner. An airliner is easy to shoot down. Missile is very hard.
It's like shooting a cow in the sky.
It's shooting a bullet coming down the sky with another bullet.
Yeah.
And all right, if you
But I mean, airliners aren't the fastest moving targets available in the sky, and they're quite large.
Now,
and
talking about the last 5 minutes of flight, we're talking about well, it's a tiny little warhead, and you're going to be able to send something up and compute to send something to intercept it in time. It's incredibly difficult. So I would say in any missile barrage, if they send 30, 40 missiles, 90% will get through. 95% will get through. No matter what Lockheed says, I'm sorry, I'm going to piss off people here. There's all these people selling these huge Patriot missile systems to blah, blah, blah. They just don't work that well. They just don't. And missiles is not the danger from Korea.
You're talking about security theater right now.
All right. Now, in my next book, what we're going to lead to is I have a scenario about a war with Korea. And how does that come about?
The United Korea.
Right.
It's about ground troops.
It's about ground troops. And, ladies and gentlemen, I have to say I'm prejudiced. I'm a former United States Marine. I'm trained as an infantryman. Well, basically. I have a basic training.
You're also in Navy intelligence.
Well, yes, but basic
I haven't
training
seen the documents.
But basic training, I mean, I had 2 weeks training as an infantryman.
That's not very long.
No. Actual Marine infantrymen get at least 6 weeks. 6 months. 6 months after basic training. So my training was just giving an idea what it's all about. Still, with that idea, I can take 100 totally motivated but untrained people and I can train them to defeat a force. Give me 2 or 3 weeks. I can train them to defeat a force of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000.
Keep going. I'm
Untrained
going to take
people.
out the battery in this clock. It's
Okay.
clicking. Yeah.
I can do that. That I have that kind of infantry knowledge and so forth, how to move people, how to train them, and you're taking out the battery of the clock. It's not anyone personal. I didn't know this clock. This clock was not a friend of mine, and Matt is really getting bad in the clock.
I'm showing
And-
you my infantry skills.
That's right. I can do it. I can teach basic combat skills, and I can teach all this kind of basic stuff. What the Marine Corps does in that other 6 months is get really into it. And I'll be really frank, I didn't like infantry school. I didn't like the war games we did in California, which spent days and days and days of marching around mountains and getting dust in your food and rained on. It does rain in California. And so forth. But being an infantryman is kind of a miserable job, but it's kind of an exhilarating thing. It's just a fighting thing. Now, and that's what, if we had a war between Japan and Korea, would have to come down to. Now, why...
Infantry. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Why I'm saying a war between Japan and Korea? Well, there's a lot of things. Everyone knows President Trump made a meeting with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, the chief secretariat he is.
Kim Jong-un has the weirdest signature I've ever seen.
Really?
When he was signing those documents with Trump,
Yes.
he kind of had like this bottom left to upright repetitive pattern. It looked like a bunch of kind of hooks. It was a very strange signature. Like,
No, I didn't know that. But,
Yeah.
when you say that, because in the West, in Japan we have a hanko. Hanko is a name stamp.
yeah.
Boom, that's our thing. But you see, in the West, of course, there's signature. And signatures, you can read character. You say that, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was a very, like, he'd obviously spent a lot of time
Studying.
crafting that, because it's the same thing over and over and over again. Just like it's a
that's
trained
how you-
handshake. Yeah.
It's a trained thing.
Yeah. But anyways, when Trump and Un were down
Right.
there.
Okay. So the whole thing about this, and I've been watching
Singapore.
Korea for many years, many years, North Korea and South Korea, and I was involved with that when I was intelligence. I think the North is maybe finally reaching its end. They're reaching the point where they really have to reach out and touch someone. And I've been seeing articles saying, well, articles always say this, but people are just getting tired of all the living under crap conditions, and we're going to make the great nuclear weapon. And I don't think they've made a nuclear weapon. I don't think they've succeeded. I really don't. This is my gut feeling. They don't have a usable nuke, but they play it like they do, which is almost as good.
It may as well be.
Right. In international poker, it's almost as good. It's almost as good.
Like when you take a picture of a military ship and you say it's going there, people just assume
Right.
that military ship is going there.
So the president of South Korea is a deep leftist and deeply wants to have the unification work. And this is really dangerous. Because if we're really going to have unification, what we need on the southern side is a deep conservative. Hey, you guys, come on. Look, we've had this war years ago. We've got 7 years of problems. Come on. What's happening in South Korea is they've covered all these problems up. And blame it all on Japan. It got so bad that they got called on this in a few places, but they were blaming the Korean War on Japan, which went from 1950 to 1953. And the story went like this, that Japanese Imperial Army units in Manchuria maneuvered into Korea, took over Korea, and ruled it until American, English, French coalition, along with South Koreans, invaded Korea and then established the present status quo. Whoa. What a redo of history. What a redo. But a lot of South Koreans, they believe that. And in fact, I do think that the South Korean president, believes something like that. So, all right, you have these people who are definitely going towards reunification. And I say definitely, I saw a thing in the paper about 3 weeks ago. I saw on Breitbart News that the President Moon of South Korea decided to cut about 100,000 troops from the South Korean army and 80% generals. Yes.
Moon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, of course, in the North, they're not announcing any kind of reciprocal cuts. They're simply saying, and they announce things like, we North Koreans live in the best country in the world. Do not be seduced by the blandishments of foreign powers. Oh. They are trying to prepare the population for meeting up with other people who have smartphones. Tasty pastries. Choco pie. Choco pie, for everyone who doesn't know, in the West, is a thing made by Lotte. It's a Korean company. It's made in Japan. It's kind of a cream pastry. It became a political issue in the Koreas. Did you know that?
Yeah, you've talked about it on the podcast
All right.
before.
So I'm going to say it became currency in North Korea.
Yeah, let's get to the war aspect of
Right.
the.
So we get to that. Let's say they unify quickly.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of government? Whatever. This brand say, it's going to have huge amount of difficulties. First of all, people in the South, and the North is going to try and preserve itself. Their government will definitely try and preserve themselves.
Sure.
So they will try to force the South to go their way, and the present South Korean government is going to go with that.
Okay, because I'm not going to purport to be of any political ideology, but left-wing people are more easy manipulated than right-wing people.
And in the South, people are going to be pretty upset against that. So they're going to go with a more and more anti-Japan. Japan did this to Korea. That's why we have so many problems. Japan did this. That's why we have trouble. And blah, blah, blah. Bring up more myths about history.
Not a straw man argument, but a rice man argument.
Yes. And in my scenario, I have, if they unified with this within this year, within the next 6 months, by the year 2020, an invasion of Japan. They could invade Kyushu. They could invade Fukuoka.
That's the only place they could, because most people think that Japan and Korea are right next to each other. They are, but only significantly so at Koreans' southern borders.
You said something very important right there.
And also Japan's southwestern borders with Kyushu.
Right.
But when you get to where North Korea is geographically, and when you go along a horizontal meridian is, what's the other one? Meridian, and what's the one that
longitude?
Longitude. When you go longitudinal around the globe, it becomes really far away really quickly, especially for the rough Japanese seas, and especially for missile attacks or plane attacks.
It would take a long time to get there.
But yeah, most people don't really consider that Japan and Korea are mostly quite far away from each other. But they really only meet up at that axis point upon, South Korea's southern borders and Japan's southern western borders.
So an invasion of Kyushu from South Korea will be about a day's crossing. And even if it's noticed by satellite, on the Japanese side, reaction, what do we do? And I'm also positive we have a large Korean population in Japan. So from there, saboteurs.
Well, that's what I've always been saying, is that the reason why the Japan is always but not being so angry against Korea is because it has a massive possible insurgency that could switch right on a moment's notice.
A lot of them,
and we're wargaming right now, and that's a wargaming perspective. Yeah,
and these people, a lot of these people would, let's say, in the bridges and railway tunnels and highway tunnels and bridges and so forth around the city of Fukuoka. Let's say that's a target.
Sure. And if there's
Would,
about 600,000 ethnic Koreans living in Japan,
all
how
you need
would
is
you
like
need?
4, 5, 2, 3. What is a couple thousand?
You would
a couple
no.
hundred.
You would need 12.
Well, even in that
12
a few.
attacks on that's
12 attacks.
That's how disruptive it can be. So when we're wargaming, if there's 12 attacks on subway
And
stations,
a lot of 99% of these people they wouldn't move, but among them are some actual real North Korean agents, and some are really Japanese people grown up here who would do such a thing. Most of them would they wouldn't go.
and it's just how many nutters are there anyways
Right.
that are succumbing to ISIS propaganda who have no connection to ISIS, but they see some convincing imagery and they go and join the battle.
Even with that,
War game.
all right. So they land, and I posit in my landing, they could deposit a 25,000 man force within 24 hours.
And this is from the perspective that Korea is a united Korea, and it would be a joint force between North and
You said
South
something very
Korea.
interesting. What would the armies look like, though?
Well, would it be the North that would raid South Korea?
No. They wouldn't be two separate armies. They would be joined.
Yeah, well,
How would they be
you would have a
joined?
North Korean mentality with South Korean
The North
weaponry.
would never let the Southern officers rule. So let's put it like this. I put it like this. In an infantry battalion, let's say 3 companies. 2 companies North Korean, 1 company South. All officers, former North
How
Korean.
many people are in a company?
300.
Okay.
300. So a battalion is like 600, 1,000 men. So it would be composed like that. But all officers would be Northern. In the Navy, 1/3 of crew is at least North Korean of any warship. But all officers, Northern. South Korean officers, gone.
Would you ever consider the fact that there might be an insurgency within an insurgency in South Korea, where
Sure, it could happen.
where the some South Korean, like what happened in Jeju Island and after World War II,
It could happen, but let's put it
where
this way.
where elements within a
I do get there in this thing.
Okay.
But let's put it this way: there's initial euphoria at the unification, and it just doesn't have time to develop.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So no one's thinking sensically.
Right? They're all thinking emotionally,
Yeah.
and yet in the North, they sense that they're having increased contact with the South. Some Southerners come to the North, bringing their smartphones, bringing their neck culture, and it's really subverting the North Korean control. And they all get panicked, and they launch this war out of panic.
Wouldn't they all just start blogs?
And they announce they start this with Koreans in Japan starting riots against Japan about sabetsu is
Discrimination.
discrimination. Yes, thank you. Gosh, I've been in Japan a long time. I forget these things.
Yeah.
Discrimination. They start these riots, and a few North Korean agents, disguised as Japanese right wingers, go out and kill some uniformed schoolgirls. Korean uniformed schoolgirls. And everyone riots.
And they also vandalize the comfort woman statues.
Well, they could do that.
But you vandalize but the comfort women statues are an emblem, right? A standing emblem. So if you put an
It's a religious
axe,
thing.
if you
Right.
put an axe in the head of one of
Actually,
those, with a Japanese
I met a
flag
guy
hanging
who,
off the end.
he-
War games.
Who are you doing this? Okay. We have all kinds of
Oh, sorry.
provocations
What were you
possible.
saying? I was just saying war games to cover my ass.
I said I've met a guy a Japanese former army colonel, who did that in South Korea.
Who attacked a comfort woman statue?
He redid a Comfort Woman monument.
And what? Postmodernism or?
No, he stapled over it marble plaques saying this is not true, kind of thing.
Wow. What happened?
We got arrested. And they let him go after a while.
Well, that's reasonable.
Anyway, all right, but back to this thing and how it would work is, and then they would use Japanese leftists to cover for them, saying that Japan was bad in World War II and Japan deserves this kind of thing. Which that kind of narrative, I think, is losing traction with Japanese people. It really is.
Yeah, I don't. I see it less and less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Japanese people really know when something's a waste of time, unless they want to waste their time doing it.
And if we had an actual invasion of Fukuoka, let us say, and I went in a little bit of research. The Japanese Fourth Army, it is, and it's Fourth Division. The Fourth Division is Japanese Western Army.
Okay,
Fourth Division.
yeah, I don't know what the 4th Division is, and I'm sure no one else does. Can you briefly expand on that?
It's the Japanese Self-Defense Fourth Infantry Division.
Yeah.
And it's responsible for Northern Kyushu. The Western Army is 2 divisions. There's one responsible for Southern Kyushu and one for Northern Kyushu. So Northern Kyushu force will be the first to respond. They're not actually in Fukuoka. They would take a little time to get there.
Where are they?
East of Fukuoka in Kitakyushu City.
That's not too far.
And but it would take some hours to get there.
Okay.
So this would be
yes,
the
fair enough.
This would be the like destroying tunnels and bridges and so forth, and I would put a response time down to like let's say 24 hours, despite and missile attacks.
And let's be honest, sometimes Japan is really slow at responding to extreme events because everything is so ordered here. Acting spontaneously to something spontaneous is, unless it's practiced like karate or something like kata. Yeah, I could see that the response time to something like this would
Now,
be
speaking
extreme.
about missiles,
Okay.
I have a massive Scud attack, Nodong. Nodong is a souped-up Scud.
Is that a Korean model?
Yeah,
Okay.
and massive attack.
South Korean. North Korean? South Korean?
North Korea.
Okay.
So I have about maybe 200-300 casualties tops.
From the missile attacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're
And
not
these are
that
launched
active.
from the north.
They're launched from the north.
Or they're not shipped to the south and then launched from the
It
south?
doesn't matter.
Okay.
They're not that accurate. They're not that good. Everyone in Japan is so worried about Korean missiles. And this has all been hyped. The mass media works for corporations
It's been hyped for years.
and works for corporations. Missiles don't mean that much.
They really don't.
They really don't.
Unless they hit your plane.
They really don't.
And then they matter. But overall,
And
yes.
for a definite source, I went back to the Gulf War 1991, and there was a Scud war between Saddam Hussein and Israel. He launched
That's right.
88 missiles in Israel, didn't he?
Yeah.
How many people did he kill?
I don't know.
2.
Israel has a really good anti-missile defense.
Well, no, it wasn't defense. It was just it was people got in shelters and so forth.
Bus
Another
stops act as missile shelters in
Another
Israel.
74 people died of heart attacks and suffocation, as is listed, but 2 as direct hits of missiles. 2 out of 88 missiles. Now, Japan, we have no defense and no training, but most would hit mountains. And even Israel, in such a densely populated area, they couldn't kill that much. And it's really an overhyped thing. I'm sorry, Lockheed or Boeing or whoever you guys sell these missiles, you're going to get mad at me now. Hey, sorry. But
We're wargaming. We're
wargaming.
We're wargaming podcasters today.
These things aren't that bad. As far as close air support and so forth,
It's security theater.
when I talk about this war, in the Korean Air Force, I also posit that in unified Korea, only North Korean pilots will be trusted with the sexy jets that the South Koreans have.
You really think that the South Korean pilots? You don't think that they would take care of their birds a little better? Think they would
Well, what
just-
North Korean pilots do with them?
Or you think they would kill them?
Well, they'd try.
Like
But the
this
same
is
thing with the
a-
Navy. Same thing with the Navy. You would have politically reliable.
What would the
Wait, let me-
okay, sure.
You would have politically reliable North Koreans, officers in charge, but they don't understand what they're in charge of.
Right.
Right.
So
So they just would not be combat capable.
the South Koreans.
North Koreans. South Koreans would be relegated, and I have in my scenario, I have South Koreans relegated to MiG-21s, which was a fantastic jet back in 1958 or something like that.
Yeah.
And North Korea has a lot of MiG-21s. It's in fact the most numerous aircraft in North Korean inventory is MiG-21.
So this could be technically done during a technology swap where the South goes to the North. The pilots try to train up there to see what's going on with their planes.
No. They're
And
just,
then
just
when
really
the when the when the
politically
North
reliable,
pilots are in the South, they hijack the planes and attack Japan. No, not like that.
Politically reliable pilots are given the good stuff, but they just can hack it. And when it would come to actual combat with Japanese forces, they just couldn't hack it. Now,
so okay, I might have a little bit of a different understanding. So, you were saying about the North Korean pilots seizing control.
No, this is a unified Korea now.
Okay, I'm sorry, but just for logistics sakes and for people who are listening,
Right.
So you're saying that these pilots who are now in a unified Korea, who are originally from the North and trained in the North,
Are being given the good planes.
They get somehow. How do they get the good planes?
Because the government says so.
Okay, sure. Okay, I get it. And then they don't know how to fly the planes, so the pilots in the unified Korea try to attack Japan with the South Korean planes, but they don't know how to operate them, and their mission fails. Is that what?
Oh, they're
is that what you
shot
said?
down like doves.
Okay.
Now, you see, I'm not making this up. What do you think happened when Germany unified?
Yeah, it was nuts.
What do you think happened in the army in East Germany?
The same thing that happens when every communist nation transitions.
All
A lot
officers,
of officers
were
die.
fired.
Yeah.
A few weapons were kept. The
Yeah.
MiG-29 was kept of Soviet Union. And now the present-day Republic of Germany Air Force does fly the MiG-29 with West German pilots. Well, they're now all Germans. They're all on Germans, you see. This is how it go. But in a unified Korea with a left-leaning southern government trying to please the North, this is what they would do. This is what they would do. Before, I didn't say that. Oh, yes, I forgot parts of my scenario before that. I have all foreigners being expelled from Korea, South Korea, all foreigners. Anyone international marriage, you have to leave. And anyone who's half Korean, they can't leave.
They have to stay.
They have to stay. And this kind of stuff. Yeah.
So let's try to get this attack a little bit more focused.
Okay.
So we have the 25,000
Troops in Fukuoka.
Yeah, and then the Fukuoka 4th Division is situated in Kitakyushu, which is a couple hours away,
And Nagasaki area.
And then, so have you figured out how this naval charge from unified Korea would combine with the airplane attacks, and like how would what are the logistical differences between the Air Force raids versus the naval combined naval and ground force raids?
I think a unified Korea would very quickly lose control of sea and air.
Everyone would go rogue, or just not enough discipline?
No. The Japanese Navy would wipe the table, and so would the Air Force.
Well, Japan hasn't been at war for so many years, and Korea is always training for war.
Yes, but they're incredibly trained.
Okay, but can you give some examples?
And we have
you're a military.
You have a united Korean force, but suddenly it's
you can't be like Bismarck in World War I, where he just automatically wins all war games because he's Bismarck.
Suddenly, you have a Korean force that's maybe the lower ranks commented, but no one in the South is truly trusted. They understand that, and the North, okay, they have a tough infantry force, but as an air force, a North Korean Air Force pilot flies about at the most 20 hours a year.
Okay,
NATO 150. They're just not going to compete. And then you put them in an F-16 or an F-5, they're just going to make it. Just learning to fly the airplane is going to take a long time. And
they're going to hit the wrong button and drop the gas tank.
And how to dogfight, all this kind of stuff. Warships, just how to fight a ship.
Or how to coordinate the sensor data to
That's right. They're just not
triangulate.
understand it. And the Japanese Navy will wipe the shore. And very quickly, the Korean force...
So the Navy would destroy the Air Force.
Both. Navy and Air Force would destroy each other. Well, the Korean, both sides.
Okay.
Both Korean and...
so the Japanese Navy
would destroy
yeah,
the Korean Navy, and the Japanese Air Force would rule the skies.
So, okay. Can you give some? You were talking about the capabilities of the South and North Korea in a unified situation. What are the capabilities of the Japanese self-defense forces on ground, naval, and air? Like, what's the difference between
Very
these?
capable. Very
Yeah,
capable.
but like, I'm
it's
asking.
all- okay,
I
still.
want some details.
All right, still, it's all in theory.
Like, I believe you, but I like you. Like, it just seems like rather magical right now. So, what kind of leveraging can the Japanese self-defense forces do in terms of their military, not self-defense capability?
All right. Well, okay, in this scenario, I have things like also the unified Korean people taking Japanese school kids as human shields.
Okay.
And people might say I'm really being too prejudiced and Koreans, but Saddam Hussein did that in 1991.
A lot of
did,
people do that. Yeah.
He did all the British and Japanese and Kuwaitis and English and other nationalities who were in Iraq at the time were put in various factories and so forth and put on TV. I remember a young English kid with Saddam Hussein. Hey, I'm Saddam Hussein, president of Iraq, and here you are in this oil factory. And yes.
But what
All right, now-
what are the capabilities of the Japanese? Like, what kind of planes do they have? What kind of guns do they have? What kind of troops do they have?
We have one of the most capable militaries in the world.
Yeah, but for example, because
All right.
if people are listening to you, you're
All
not
right.
providing any evidence. Because if we're wargaming, we need to get some, like you were mentioning about the
First of all,
MiG
okay, the
29s and the
all right.
F-16s.
The Japanese Air Force is based on the F-15.
Okay.
The Japanese Army has its own infantry weapons, its own tanks, and they're highly capable.
And built in Japan?
Yes,
Okay.
built in Japan. And in this sense, I would have, for example, like the Japanese Army going through Fukuoka, like doing infantry-centric tactics, no artillery, no airstrikes, because they would kill civilians in the area, and they would just dig out the people one by one. But the thing is that whatever the North brings with them, whatever Korea brings with them, with Japan quickly getting control of the sea, they would get no resupply. And they would have to hold on.
Yeah.
And air supply would be impossible because even at night, Japan has AWACS.
What's that?
You have airborne radar
Okay.
in the AWACS. That's an AWACS.
Yeah, I don't know about any of this
Really?
type. Yeah,
America has a lot of them.
Yeah.
But Japan, we have 5.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
we have 5.
and I'm sure most of the people that listen to this podcast
Okay.
have no idea
So even-
about military expertise.
Even like I
You
have,
got to talk to
okay.
retards. Like, I'm a military
no.
retard.
I have North Korean commanders landing in AN-2s, and it's Antonov 2. Antonov 2 is a lot better than the Osprey because it's invisible.
Okay.
It's made out of wood and fabric. And the engine, of course, will reflect. But you see, in mountainous areas of Korea, that's really cool because you can land 20 guys behind enemy lines somewhere.
In
Land a
Korea?
short area. It's a biplane. I think it's a biplane.
And who made this plane?
Russia.
Okay. And this is a North Korean one?
Well, they have a lot.
Are,
They have
and are you
4.
talking about it in landing in Japan?
Yes.
Okay.
But you see, once they do the first landing, though, over water, still it wouldn't work. AWACS would spot them. AWACS would spot them. If you're flying in a place like South Korea, and infiltrating somewhere, it's hard to see among all the mountains and all that kind of stuff. On water, they would probably be spotted, and they wouldn't get that much more new stuff in. So whatever Korea lands in their initial attack, that's all they got.
Would it just be like a one, like with this attack, would it just be like a one-off kind of thing? Like,
It would be a thing, and then they would hope for a political solution. That's what they'd hope for. A political solution, and try to use Japanese leftist forces to demonstrate for a political solution. And in my scenario, I have Japanese kids rioting in Shibuya, marching to Nagata-cho with Hinomaru flags, demanding a resolution. The Japanese government falls, a new government is formed, and we're going to fight back. Da-da-da-da-da. Cue the trumpets.
yeah. It's-
Also, I started putting Japanese Communist Party offices start getting burned. And things
you don't like the Japanese communists? They seem to be the only reasonable communists in the world.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Like, I know some of them. I used to teach them, and they were family men. They're learning languages. They're very jovial. I'd go for beers with them sometimes.
I used to be in a Japanese Communist Party painting group. I'm a former oil painter.
Yeah,
I used to exhibit in Tokyo Metropolitan Museum with them.
yeah.
And we would go out for drinks. And sometimes one guy get drunk and say, if it hadn't been for Stalin, the whole world would be communist by now. But Stalin messed it up.
Sure did.
Yeah, well.
Well, everyone says the guy that before me messed it up. If it was only me that was doing communism, but for some reason the Japanese communists, the only way they succeed is through grassroots efforts, because they have a grassroots national level in government. So they seem to be like, we don't want nuclear war, we want more green energy, but they have like a business side to them as well. I don't know. It's very unusual, the fact that it's like when I hang out with the Japanese communists, like card carrying communists that work for the Akahata, it's like, I like these guys. I like drinking beer with these guys. These commies are fucking fun, man. These are good guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. It's very different from left.
I tell you,
American.
when I used to be in this group and we would exhibit paintings in the Tokyo Metropolitan Museum, I made no effort to hide as a former U.S. Naval Intelligence agent.
They don't give a shit.
No. And once I was interpreter for this Cuban exhibition. A bunch of Cuban artists came and were exhibiting with us.
Right.
Also fellow communists. And I had a fun game. We had a party there in the restaurant in the Metropolitan Museum. The whole restaurant was ours for that day. And there's like 20 artists. And I walked to one guy and I said, "You must be the political officer." I didn't want to say spy. I didn't want to say spy. It's rude.
It's rude.
I'm
Especially
from a spy.
especially if you're going to point your finger in somebody's chest. You got to do it with respect.
I said political officer.
Yeah.
And he's just what? How did you know?
Yeah.
And I said, "You have the eyes of a political officer."
Yeah.
He was watching everybody. He's the one guy who wasn't talking to anyone. And all these other artists, they're talking. And it's all communists. We're all communists, except me, the interpreter. I translate English, Japanese, how bad America is to Cuba, blah, blah, blah. And America is pretty bad to Cuba, especially back that time.
Yeah.
And anyway, and I had so much fun with that.
It's hilarious. One thing about the wargaming we were just doing,
Right.
was there are American military bases.
Yes.
Well, how does America
good point.
come into this war game scenario? And then we'll end on that and move on to something else. So what would you say? We're supposed to be sworn allies. Japan, I'm not Japanese, but
in
Japan and America.
Scenario,
Yes.
I have Donald Trump being deposed in the midterm elections in 2018.
Do you think that's going to happen?
Is it possible?
Okay, well, this is the scenario. We're wargaming. So
we have.
I love saying that.
We have a feminist president, and when North Korea invades, United Korea invades Japan, she declares America neutral.
The Switzerland. You got to pee. All right, well, let's take a break. So, the American president is now a woman and has declared neutrality. And then what happens to the military inside of Japan?
I would say that
the sworn alliance. They're just going to quit?
They're given orders to stay on base.
To stand down.
Right. And before that, I had several things happen to the U.S. military, which I think would happen if President Trump is deposed. Deposed is the proper word. And I have a thing called diversity counselors, which are appointed to regimental and brigade level and all command levels. That these are politically correct left-wingers, basically women, professors who have override command authority over any military order to enforce political correctness among the military. And I have this happening before the Korean invasion of Japan. The American military is having its hamstrings cut, frankly speaking.
Yeah, in some ways. Yeah.
Yes. This is already happening in many ways.
Sort of men wearing makeup with high heels.
Yes, and it's making very official.
So scary.
It's ridiculous. Now, when the war comes, though, I do have, as a former U.S. Marine, I had to do this. I do have the Marines revolt. The Marines kill their diversity counselors and offer their services to the Japanese government. The Japanese government accepts. And at the end of this war, I also have Russia sending an airborne division to Japan and the Russian Far East Fleet to help.
Do all the Marines that revolt get Japanese citizenship and beautiful wives as a war bond?
We don't go in that much detail. However, though, Russia would look at this as a Chinese-dominated Korea taking over Japan. Russia might lose out on Pacific access. Russia would not like to see it happen. Russia would like to see an independent Japan. So Russia have contributing an airborne division and their fleet
Against Korea?
against Korea
All right.
on the Japanese side. And we have remnants of...
And also hopefully take out a couple of social justice warriors along the way, because Russia doesn't like social justice warriors so much. Anyways, please continue.
Oh, I will. I have a plan. We all social justice warriors in Japan will get sent to a vacation to Vladivostok, Russia.
Or Karafuto. Is this a war game or is this a fantasy? What's happening here, Max?
Well. Well, we stick to the war game. The fantasy will come out
what?
later.
All right.
Fantasy comes out later. But and that's how it ends. Is that there's
And then I get to command the Marines. Yeah, sorry. How does it end?
a counter invasion into South Korea, just north of Busan, and
With a Japanese-led force.
Russian, American, and Korean exile force.
So the Koreans that have been overthrown, the true
There's
Koreans,
at least 1 million refugees in South Koreans that get to Japan.
we get them some weapons. They come back.
Yes.
All right. That makes sense strategically, actually, if you think about the geography.
Yes.
And then we can finally cinch off that wart of history, pop its Poppets, not cherry, but Poppets blister. And suck out all the pus.
It's put a
good
lot of
old
things right.
fashioned
Put a lot of things right.
war-based capitalism.
And the whole thing is that a lot of people would die, and most of them would be Koreans. A lot of Japanese would die, of course, in this thing. But most of them would be Koreans.
Am I in Canada? Do I get to enjoy this from my patio? Can I?
Wait till you hear what's in my next book about Canada.
It's just not good. Canada sucks so fucking hard right
No,
now.
you never heard of War Plan Red, have you?
No, but let's not go
Let's
there.
go stay with Korea.
Yes.
Right. So it would be really bad, mostly for Korea, and we'd probably end up with a situation somewhat like today, with a line about where it is now, where China has influence and Japan has influence, even though America would be totally out of the picture, probably. And it would take about 2 to 3 million dead to accomplish this. For the Korean people, let me say this. And it sounds like maybe I'm really Japanese and I don't like Koreans. That's not the case. I've lived in Korea. I've had a lot of Korean
Yeah,
friends.
we're talking about policy here, not people.
And Korea has gotten into this thing, especially since the 1980s with the Kim Jae-jung government. And Japan is a horrible thing, and Japan is so terrible, we're going to make revenge Japan. And we're somehow going to make a dream unification with the North. And as a former German, born in America, but I'm a German, it wasn't easy, the East and the West. It wasn't easy. It was terrible. It was awful. And yet, the East Germany was the high point of communism. It was.
Yeah, that was the model example that was being displayed to the rest of the world at the time.
And still, to unify with the West, if you ever want to see a little glimpse of this, there's a German movie I recommend you see. It's called Goodbye Lenin. see
I've
this
seen
movie.
it. Yeah, it's a good movie.
It's a good movie. It was hard. It was hard. Now, North Korea and South Korea have not had any communication. They have extremely vetted a few people are meeting who haven't met for like 70 years, families and so forth are meeting now. But, this is very small stuff. I say wait 30, 50 years before unification for Korea. There are voices now who are speaking we should have a fast unification and we should have the great Korean Empire and we should be wonderful and we're going to attack Japan. This is not making the mass media, but it's part of it. Korea has no reason to attack Japan. Japan developed and built that country. It's the truth. This is truth. I'm sorry. Whatever people in South Korea scream and yell, and I'm really reluctant to go to South Korea today because I might be killed for saying this. But it's the truth. South Koreans are being killed for saying this. But it's the truth. And, something is so different in the North. And look what you have in the South. You have reasonable life. Okay, there's a lot of things you can say bad about South Korea. Long working hours, companies force you to retire like you're 45 or something like this. There's some difficulties in there are. But if you want to look at North Korea and South Korea.
Yeah, I've been to South Korea a few times.
Yeah.
It's a good place to be overall.
It's not awful. It's okay.
It's pretty much a good place to be, is the way I see it. Yeah.
And if you listen to some emotional people in the South who are all about this, we're going to have the great Korean Empire. We should unify and we can defeat Japan. Excuse me. Who's going to rule it, first of all? The North is definitely going to do their best to control it. And then when people start expressing discontent, what do they think will happen to those people who express discontent? I have them in my scenario. They disappear into camps. Never heard from again.
Oh, so there's the possibility of the North exporting its camps into the South via political ideology.
It will happen. It will happen. It will happen. I see this already happening when President Moon announces he's going to reduce the army by 118,000 infantry, plus 18% of the generals will be reduced. That means they're going to be fired. He's going to choose generals he doesn't like. He's afraid of a military coup. There is no reason to reduce the number of troops in the South Korean army. No reason.
Especially at this point.
Right.
Wouldn't it be just like an act of, hey, you're getting rid of North, you're getting rid of your nuclear stuff, we're getting rid of our...
But the North is not.
All right.
And they don't have it in the first place. They don't have it in the first place. It's all charade.
So,
Right.
regarding the end of this war, where Japan totally wins, what's the end result? Because we got to wrap up soon.
Okay. I actually haven't written that part, but I would put the end result.
We're spitballing war games. That's what this
I would put the end
podcast is all
result.
about.
Probably, I put North Korea. What was North Korea going into warlordism, and South Korea would become a state under Japanese rule. And I would put the line somewhere near this present DMZ. And China and Japan would sort of, despite China backing the whole thing from the beginning, and we say pretty strongly, and Russia would say strongly, because America's out of it, America's in civil war, we would say, hey, go back to the old DMZ line, and let's have peace over that, because we don't want to fight each other over that.
Yeah.
And that's how it would move. And it would probably come back to that. And China would get a mess of what North Korea would be. Japan would get a mess of what South Korea was. And nuclear war would be avoided between all powers. And it would mean several million Korean deaths. And a couple 100,000 Japanese deaths. That's what I mean. America would be ejected from Asia. Japan would probably make a government somewhat combined with Russia and looking with China, and would make its own resurgence in military power.
Wow. So This is a crazy war game, man.
I'm
I don't.
Matt, I'm incredibly insane. It's been said. Incredibly insane.
Well, you know what? That's the point about spitballing war games, and like I trust like people that are listening to understand that it's a war game, and then
It's
they
a scenario.
and
This is a basic scenario. It's an informed scenario. It doesn't mean 100% it's going to happen this way.
no, just talking about possibilities, like a risk
Right.
game or something like that. But I understand that. Just make up your own mind about this information, people. It's what? How would I? Okay, because I should provide my own thing. Well, how would I feel about this? So we're war gaming. So we're going not with what's actually happening, but with like a possibility, right?
Right.
A what if scenario. So I agree that I like this idea about the North and the South, the reunification, and then a massive amount of influence from the North affecting a very left-leaning Southern
Right.
government. Not the
Right.
people, but we're talking about policy. Because
government. Right.
policy and government policy and people are always so different from each other, right? So we're just talking about policy. Like I would imagine most South Koreans disagreeing with everything anyways.
They
But
really wouldn't want to,
yeah. So anyways, I'm just thinking about it this way. So, okay. So for some reason now, boom, this a whole bunch of military influence affects South Korea. And then they managed to finagle a way to gather some boats and some jets to attack. Yeah. I would assume that they would.
That would be like the amphibious warships the South Korean Navy possesses, plus a lot of ferries on a follow-up thing.
Yeah.
They could do 25,000.
I could see them definitely doing like a pincer attack on a Japanese city, and then the response would be very heavy. Of course, the world supports Japan a lot more than North and South
aggressors
Korea.
aren't liked.
And that's the other thing. And then there's also the fact that even though America might be controlled by feminists who have ousted Donald
Right.
Trump at the time, there would still be like this historical reference of, well, Japan has been nuked and we need to, everybody likes Japan.
And a lot of people like
Not
World War II,
everybody,
Japan
but-
was bad. If you think all that, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's one thing.
yeah.
But then someone invading Japan is
it's a
another story.
blemish that's
another story.
spotlighted, gaslighted, if you will. But so then, what would happen? Yeah, the forces would strike back, and there would be some military exchanges, but overall, it would definitely increase hostility between Japan and Korea politically for a long term, because Korea struck back against Japan after a perceived strike from Japan to Korea, which is a viable logical reasoning, even if you agree with it or disagree with it. So what would the end result be? The end result would be, I think that it would be possible for some of the unified Korean ideology to to infiltrate into Kyushu, and there might be some sentiment being spread, like a cancerous invasion within some sort of like some disenfranchised populations.
That's already happening.
Overall,
in wartime, I don't really think they would have something very usable.
it's very chaotic.
Because in wartime, what you're really doing with that, you're asking people who says, yeah, they can say in peace, yeah, Japan's horrible. Japan's terrible.
China
Awful.
would back right off and just wait, wouldn't it?
China would back right off and wait.
It would start
And then-
circling the Senkaku Islands.
And then these people that you say who are in Kyushu and
War games.
and suddenly they get orders to actually go out and bomb something, most people would find a way to be busy. They would only get affected by, they could have a couple hundred actual saboteurs sent in and living with somebody. That's different. These people are dedicated. But your actual people living there, they're going to kind of sit in the fence and say, gee, what's going to win? And when it comes down to it, they're going to maybe go to the police and say, hey, such and such guy forced his way to stay with us and blah, 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 blah. And they'd be tracked down and wiped out. They would have initial effect, but they wouldn't last long.
It wouldn't last long, and it might just put an end to. I would say it would either go putting an end to the whole regime in North Korea.
Oh yeah.
And proving finally through economics and war that it's a failed idea.
In my scenario, actually, how it ends is they try to escape to China, but they're killed on the way. And North Korea declines into warlordism. Various generals in various areas take over their resources and declare de facto independence area.
I think that most of the North Korean populace, going back to from policy to people, are tired of this whole thing and they just want to be normal people. All right.
It's going that way. That's what their problem is.
Let's finish with this.
Yes.
This is another news story. So
Another news story.
We're not doing...
Does this involve Wilma with not much clothes on?
No, it involves the mystery of the disappearing family altar water offering.
What?
Man catches...
I saw that. I know who it is.
Yeah.
I know the culprit. The culprit is...
Man catches the culprit. A Japanese family wondered why water placed on their family
offering
altar kept disappearing. Turns out, was to blame. In Japanese culture, it's a tradition to have a butsudan, or family altar, in the home. The butsudan altar is where the family stores the ashes and often photos of deceased relatives, keeping their memory alive. Incense is lit inside the butsudan, and worldly refreshments like fruit and sake are often placed as offerings for the spirits there. So anyways.
I know who did it. I know. Let me say this. It is a nefarious opponent.
Fledgling manga artist keeps a cup of water on his family altar. But recently he started noticing something a little strange. Over time, the water steadily disappears.
This opponent appears when you don't expect.
It was a little mysterious. Could it be a message from the spirit world?
No.
Could his dead relatives be trying to get in contact with him?
Someone is appearing and doing this.
Or are they simply imbibing the offerings provided? But rather than any of those things, it was just the thirsty family cat sneaking a sip from the cup.
Ooh. Now, when I had cats, I was single. And
Isn't that cute, though?
I'm a terrible bachelor. I had dirty dishes sitting for a week, like in the sink. I would have dirty dishes with water in them, and I'd have clean water for the cats all the time and their food. They never drank that water. They always went to the sink with that nasty stuff that's been standing there for 2 or 3 days. That they drank. I couldn't figure it.
Well, when you put your mom's ashes next to a glass of water and the cat starts drinking it, maybe that's the reason why.
Cats have a thing with humans. See, cats, I don't want to say cats want to say fuck you to humans, but it's kind of close to that.
Yeah, they're not domesticated. It's a bizarre.
It's a you take care of me because I own you, kind of thing. Dogs are like, hey, master, I waited your command, but cats is like, hey, I own you. You're going to do what I want.
You can put a cat in a box for 2 hours and a dog in a box for 2 hours. Open those boxes, and which one's going to be your friend?
Hey. The box of cat is going to half shredded.
Yeah. All right, Max.
Ladies and gentlemen,
that's it for this. So that's Japan, a month in review, August 2018, spitballing war games. Thank you very much, Max, for joining the podcast.
And ladies and gentlemen, Japanese cats and Japanese dogs are no different. That's what they do.
And you can check us out, MatthewPandBigelow.com. Where can people find you, Max?
With him. Or you can put my name in Google. And actually, I'm fat. It's hard to hide.
Max von Schuler Kobayashi. Max Talks?
Tokyo Max Talks.
That's Tokyo Max Talks.
You put Tokyo Max Talks and you put me in it. You'll get me. You'll get me somewhere.
All right. Thanks, Max.
Merci beaucoup.
De rien, à la prochaine.
À la prochaine fois.
Ouais.
Oui.
10 years in Japan, motherfuckers. 10 years. Only in Japan. feel good. I'll meet up with my fan on the street. Can I talk? Can I meet with a think about the scene over here? Yeah, see me hollering down. Come down, holler at me. Oh yeah.